In the vast emptiness between galaxies, where no light dared linger and time moved like frozen molasses, a shape drifted, ancient, immense, and nearly forgotten. It wasn't a rock nor a ship. It was a being. A dragon. Vast wings once laced with solar filaments now hung limp, torn and hollowed. Bioluminescent veins that had once glowed like nebulae now flickered in irregular spasms, pulsing dimly under a thick crust of alien parasites. The creature's name was Virextal, though even that had faded from all memory except its own. In ages past, its form blazed through galactic storms, shepherding civilizations too young to even classify the stars. It had known honor ceremony, all. Those days had long ended. Now, it floated in silence, cocooned by millions of parasitic barnacles, each one a hard-shelled leech burrowed deep into its hide, chewing slowly through bone, sinew, and thought. These space barnacles had evolved to consume psychic energy. They didn't just feed on flesh, they siphoned memory, dream, and soul. Virextal's consciousness flickered like a dying fire, devoured in fragments, pulled into thousands of gnashing maws. Its mind, once able to converse in lattice-encoded thought with hyper-intelligent species, now struggled to form coherent memory. Most of the past was a blur of pain. Every movement was answered with stabbing agony, every attempt to send out a distress pulse silenced by a wave of psychic suppression. It had not seen a star in decades. No planetary system, no voice from the void. All who passed by kept distance. There were legends of an ancient beast cursed by cosmic plague, but those who came close enough to confirm the tale never returned. Scanners caught glimpses of a massive biological mass, coated in bioparasitic structures, radiating decay. It was marked as dangerous, contaminated. A threat best avoided. But Virextal was not dead. Not yet. Somewhere in the rotting architecture of its body, the core pulsed. The furnace heart that once birthed firestorms still lived, albeit weak. Its thoughts came slowly, garbled, disconnected. Sometimes it recalled voices, laughter, the ceremonies of long-dead creators. The memory of 1,000 hatchlings resting in the curl of its wings. But mostly, it remembered the silence. The slow abandonment. At times, the dragon considered letting go completely. If it ceased resisting, the barnacles would consume what little remained of its essence faster, perhaps sparing it further torment. But an ancient instinct persisted. The primal refusal to die, bred deep into its kind across countless stellar generations. Even in pain, it endured. Once, it had fought the parasites. Its immune system, capable of annihilating entire viral moons, surged in retaliation. It had burned half its own flesh trying to purge them. But the barnacles adapted. They anchored deeper. They replicated faster than its tissues could regenerate. They gnawed into synaptic channels, causing neurofeedback so intense it collapsed portions of its brain architecture. Even its outer shell, a biometallic armor forged in stellar crucibles, had cracked under their spread. Drifting alone in the dark, it remained awake, barely. Occasionally, it tried to emit a pulse, a silent cry into the void. None answered. Nothing had changed in what felt like 1,000 years. Time was elastic. Memory unreliable. But the pain remained constant. Until something shifted. The presence was so faint that Virextal almost missed it. A prickle, like a breeze across a burn. A proximity alert flared, weak and distant, but real. Something was nearby, small, insignificant in size yet active. A ship? At first, the dragon dismissed it as another scavenger come to feed on its bones. Then it realized the thing was approaching, closer than any in centuries. Its system stirred weakly, trying to focus. The barnacles reacted too, bristling along its surface, tendrils twitching toward the intruder. The ship was not large. Barely the size of one of the dragon's vertebrae. It scanned, stopped, held position. Virextal summoned all the strength it could muster to do nothing, to appear lifeless. Perhaps it would go. Perhaps it would not dare. That would be better. It could not bear another probe. But the ship remained. Then, without warning, it moved even closer, nudging against a plate of armor scorched and crusted with barnacles. Tools extended. A laser flickered. A device hummed. The parasites shifted uneasily. One of them shrieked, a sound Verextel could feel deep in the remnants of its spine. The barnacle's hold broke, just one, but it was like a weight lifting from a patch of its skull. Verextel's mind twitched. The act was small, meaningless in the scale of its suffering. But it was deliberate. Intentional. It wasn't a scavenger. Someone was trying to help. Eli Voss wasn't in it for glory or heroism. He ran a one-man salvage operation from a patched-up vessel older than most moons. His ship, the Antares Beetle, creaked when it turned and growled when it accelerated, but it got him where he needed to go, mostly to graveyards of forgotten tech and drifting wrecks. The edges of the galaxy held things no one wanted to talk about: derelict war relics, malfunctioning AIs sealed in dying stations, and sometimes things even stranger. That's where Eli found value. What others abandoned, he collected, fixed, or sold. He caught the signal while scanning the void near an uncharted region between star clusters. Weak, scattered barely there. But it wasn't random radiation. It pulsed, slow and irregular. Biological. That was unusual. Life didn't belong here, not in the empty folds of deep space. Curiosity won before caution had a chance to speak. The ship's AI flagged the source, a massive biosignature. No propulsion, no energy output, just a drifting organic anomaly the size of a city. Caution protocols screamed. The database tagged it as a biohazard from a long-forgotten expedition. Warnings filled the console. Eli muted them. He wasn't leaving until he saw it himself. When the ship closed in, his breath caught. The thing was enormous, larger than anything he'd seen. Even from kilometers away, he could make out the crusty infestations crawling across its body. It wasn't just big. It was alive barely. It looked like a beast pulled from a myth, its form hidden under layers of parasites. He scanned the surface. Faint biological readings confirmed the creature wasn't dead. It was in stasis, or worse, aware and trapped. Something cold curled in Eli's chest. Everything he'd ever known about survival told him to leave it alone. Get what data he could, turn around, and forget he ever came here. But then he noticed something that stopped him. A single eye, massive and dim, cracked halfway open. There was no aggression, no instinct to lash out. Just exhaustion. And pain. It was the look of something ancient that had suffered too long and expected nothing more from the universe. Eli didn't decide to help. He acted before he realized it was a choice. He maneuvered the ship closer, deployed the diagnostics probe, and ran a detailed scan. The parasites had wrapped themselves into its nervous system, tapping deep into its energy structure. Every nerve was being leached. Removing them wasn't just dangerous, it was nearly impossible. He could have called it in. Government, corporate biosalvage teams, or private xenobiological outfits would have paid handsomely. But he knew what they'd do. Study it. Explode it. Or worse, dissect it alive. He didn't want that. Not for something that had survived this long just to be butchered in the name of science. The AI insisted on protocol. This entity poses unknown risks. Disengagement is advised. Eli ignored it. That thing is still alive, he said aloud, not caring that no one else could hear. And it didn't ask to be left here. He began analyzing the barnacles. Their biology was complex, adaptive. Each was connected through a latticework of tendrils that responded aggressively to external stimulus. He watched one flare open, revealing layers of neural hooks and suction glands. These weren't simple feeders. They were precision predators. He made contact with the surface. The first attempt nearly ruptured his suit. A barnacle flared and lashed out with an acidic barb. But he learned quickly. Adjusted, adapted, countered. He injected a paralyzing agent, waited, then carefully pried it off. The reaction was violent. The parasite screamed in a soundless burst of psychic energy. The creature twitched, spasming from the sudden release of pressure. But it didn't react in anger. It endured. One down. Millions to go. Eli didn't consider the full scope. He knew it wasn't a job he could finish in a day or even weeks. But he couldn't turn away. He had tools, some experience, and most importantly, time. He'd spent most of his life fixing broken things no one believed were worth the effort. This was no different, except now the stakes were cosmic. He began logging patterns, studying the parasites' responses, finding weaknesses, creating makeshift chemical cocktails that could paralyze their systems long enough to work. The deeper he went, the more damage he saw. Some wounds were centuries old. Others still bled faintly. The dragon hadn't just been abandoned, it had been suffering, actively, all this time. Hours passed. He forgot to eat. The AI shut down external alerts after he disabled its override functions. Alone in silence, surrounded by rot and decay, Eli chipped away at what should have been a tomb. He didn't understand why yet. Only that something this ancient, this powerful, had held on when everything else would have given up. And if it hadn't quit, either would he. Eli didn't sleep much after that first day. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the barnacles twitching, the slow tremble of the dragon's body under their grip, the haunted expression in that eye. Sleep could wait. The dragon couldn't. He established a routine. Scan, test, treat, remove. Each day brought more understanding of the parasite's biology. They weren't a single species but a cooperative network, thousands of genetically distinct variants operating in symbiosis, engineered by something or someone to infest a creature exactly like this. That wasn't natural evolution. It was targeted design. Which meant someone had wanted this dragon to suffer. Eli kept pulling them off one at a time. His tools got better, his technique faster. He developed a microdart cocktail of neuroinhibitors, paralyzing the barnacle's neural web just long enough to detach them without triggering a full defensive response. Still, the work was brutal. One wrong move meant they'd swarm, and the feedback could overload his ship's systems or fry his own nervous system through the psychic interface. He didn't flinch. Pain was the price. The dragon began reacting differently. Its movements, still subtle, still slow, were no longer just spasms of reflex. There was intention. When he approached a particularly infested ridge of its body, it shifted slightly, exposing the worst affected parts. Not fully, but just enough to show it understood. The creature was still thinking, still aware. It wasn't just enduring anymore, it was cooperating. He tried communicating. Audio, light pulses, even a coded stream of electromagnetic signals. Nothing worked at first. Then, without warning, the console flashed with a low-frequency burst, raw and chaotic. It wasn't language. It was emotion. Pain, ancient and deep. Gratitude, buried under layers of exhaustion. And curiosity. The connection deepened with each barnacle removed. The dragon wasn't just regaining strength, it was slowly reclaiming parts of itself. Neural pathways long suppressed by the parasites began firing again. Bioluminescent veins started to pulse in faint rhythms. The eye, once dull, now tracked Eli's movement. Not fully, but enough to be unmistakably alive. Eli took samples from the discarded parasites. Under analysis, the barnacles shared fragments of absorbed memories, distorted, blurred images, planetary vistas, fleets fleeing in terror, fire raining from the heavens. The dragon had fought a war once. One it hadn't started. It had been a protector, perhaps a guardian of some ancient race now lost. But it had been betrayed. Not by enemies. By allies. The barnacles weren't punishment. They were containment. Whoever did this hadn't wanted to kill the dragon. They wanted it to suffer quietly, forgotten. A warning, maybe? Or insurance that it would never rise again. Eli didn't care. He didn't need the full history to understand what mattered. Someone had chosen to abandon this being, and now it was his choice whether to do the same. His repairs grew more ambitious. He didn't just remove barnacles, he began sealing the wounds. He 3D printed artificial tissue patches, reactivated dormant healing glands in the creature's biology, and injected nutrient serums directly into its spinal tissues. He was working on instinct, educated guesses, and stubborn persistence. His body started showing signs of wear. Hands shaking, eyes red from constant strain. He ate protein packs on the go and recycled air far longer than any regulation would allow. But each time he saw the dragon's pulse grow stronger, each time another cluster of barnacles shriveled and fell away, it fueled him more than food ever could. Weeks passed. Maybe months. Time blurred. The AI, finally convinced of the mission's direction, adapted to support instead of resist. It managed logistics, rerouted energy, and maintained external sensors while Eli worked. Then came the first vocalization. Not from his equipment. From the dragon itself. A low, resonant hum vibrated through the void, picked up on every sensor. A frequency far below human hearing, layered with complex overtones. It wasn't sound, it was a message carried through field resonance. A greeting. A name. Verextel. It was the first real confirmation. The dragon remembered who it was. That meant its mind was intact, or healing rapidly. Eli stared at the name for a long time. It wasn't a label. It was a declaration, I am still here. In that moment, Eli understood what he was really doing. He wasn't just fixing a body. He was reviving a legend. Rebuilding a mind. Restoring dignity that had been stolen. Whatever this creature once was, it deserved to become that again. Not as a relic, but as a force reborn. And he wasn't stopping until it stood free. As Verextel's strength returned, Eli noticed shifts beyond the physical. The dragon's presence altered the space around them, subtle but undeniable. Energy fields that once flickered erratically now hummed steadily, stabilizing the area inside the Antares beetle's immediate vicinity. The barnacles, those once ominous parasites, shriveled as their grip weakened. Many detached themselves, drifting into the void like dead stars shedding their last light. Eli deepened his research into the dragon's biology. Verextel's core was unlike anything catalogued in galactic xenobiology databases. It wasn't just organic, it was an ancient fusion of bioenergy and quantum resonance, a living relic of civilizations long vanished. This core radiated a unique frequency that disrupted the parasite's ability to communicate and coordinate. Removing the barnacles, while painful, also reactivated dormant defense mechanisms embedded within the dragon's physiology. The dragon began responding to Eli's presence in more complex ways. It reacted to his touch, shifting vulnerable plates to facilitate treatment. Its massive wings, once crippled and inert, twitched as if testing muscles forgotten for centuries. Though still fragile, these movements indicated progress. Healing was underway, and Verextel's will to live surged stronger. Eli felt the weight of responsibility grow heavier with every barnacle removed. This was no mere salvage operation. He was custodian of a cosmic titan, a guardian of something humanity barely understood. His usual transactional mindset gave way to reverence. This was a story older than any star map, a saga etched in pain and endurance. Communication between them evolved. Verextel's mind, though vast and alien, began bridging the gap with Eli's own consciousness. The dragon's thoughts filtered through the ship's systems, fragmented visions, emotions, warnings of forgotten wars. It revealed glimpses of a time when dragons like it roamed freely, protectors of balance and keepers of peace among starfaring races. Verextel recounted betrayal, a cataclysm that shattered alliances and left it cursed. The barnacles were not natural parasites but engineered shackles, designed to suppress and isolate. The creature had been abandoned deliberately to die slowly, exiled into the void as a living tomb. Despite the revelation, Eli found no trace of bitterness in the dragon's mind. Instead, there was hope, fragile but present. Verextel's instinct was to survive, to heal, to reclaim what was lost. It sought not vengeance but restoration. Eli made a silent promise. He would not let the galaxy forget this guardian. His ship, frail and small against the cosmic scale, became a sanctuary. Every repair, every nutrient infusion, every barnacle peeled away was a step toward freedom. The dragon's regenerative abilities, once crippled, now accelerated. Open wounds closed. Bioluminescent veins pulsed with renewed vigor, casting eerie, radiant light that filled the ship's dim corridors. Eli's instruments recorded unprecedented data, the living quantum matrix pulsing at the core, sustaining life beyond biological norms. Varextel's mental signals intensified, synchronizing with the Antares beetle's AI. This bond allowed Eli to anticipate the dragon's needs. When a cluster of barnacles reacted defensively, Eli was ready with countermeasures. When the dragon sought to shift or stretch, Eli adjusted support structures accordingly. One night, Eli found himself talking aloud, not just issuing commands but sharing thoughts, questions, even regrets. The isolation of space, once a familiar solitude, now felt charged with connection. Varextel's consciousness, though alien, was a companion. It listened, responded in subtle waves, and sometimes, in moments of quiet, seemed to offer gratitude. The transformation was gradual but undeniable. Varextel's bulk no longer sagged in despair but hinted at regained strength. Neural pathways, once severed by parasitic infestation, lit up in renewed patterns. The barnacles' control diminished, they ceased coordinated attacks, becoming fragmented and inert. Eli realized this was more than healing, it was a rebirth. The ancient dragon was emerging from centuries of suffering, ready to rise once again. The Antares beetle drifted through the void, carrying the weight of a living legend. Eli prepared for what came next. The galaxy might not yet be ready to welcome Varextel back, but he was determined to ensure the dragon's survival, not as a captive, not as a weapon, but as a symbol of endurance and hope. For the first time since their encounter, Eli allowed himself to believe that salvation was possible, not just for Varextel, but for all forgotten beings cast into the darkness. Varextel's revival was more than physical, it was a catalyst that rippled far beyond the isolated void where Eli had found it. The dragon's core pulsed with renewed energy, sending waves through the fabric of space that resonated with long-dormant relics scattered across the galaxy. These echoes stirred ancient sensors and alerted distant civilizations, some curious, others wary. Eli understood the risks. News of a living cosmic entity like Varextel would ignite factions, governments, and opportunists desperate to claim power or control. The dragon's survival challenged existing power structures, proof that ancient forces still shaped the galaxy's fate. He fortified the Antares beetle's defenses and calibrated stealth systems to mask their presence. He wasn't just protecting Varextel from physical harm but from becoming a pawn or weapon in a much larger game. Varextel itself sensed the growing tension. Its awareness expanded, reaching beyond its own suffering to grasp the broader galactic landscape. It recognized old enemies lurking in the background, star empires that once hunted it, corporations that thrived on exploitation, and shadowy entities that thrived on chaos. Despite this, the dragon did not retreat into isolation. Instead, it chose resilience. The bond between Eli and Varextel deepened into partnership. Communication grew fluent, moving beyond fragmented signals into complex exchanges of thought and intent. Varextel shared knowledge of star systems forgotten by time, of technologies lost beneath cosmic wars, and of philosophies that transcended species. Eli absorbed it all, aware he carried not just a life but a legacy. Together, they planned a path forward. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but also filled with allies and possibilities. Varextel's strength would grow, and Eli's experience navigating the edges of known space would prove invaluable. They would seek out forgotten enclaves and lost civilizations, those who might remember or revere the dragons and their ancient role as guardians. The first real test came sooner than expected. A scouting fleet, cloaked and armed, detected the energy signatures around the Antares beetle. They came with demands: surrender the dragon for study and containment. Eli refused. He engaged evasive maneuvers and activated defensive protocols. The confrontation was brief but intense. The fleet underestimated the combined resilience of man and dragon. Varextel unleashed dormant powers, not with aggression but with a demonstration of force. Energy cascades erupted from its wings, disrupting enemy systems and forcing retreat. It was a warning: this guardian was not to be trifled with. Eli and Varextel escaped, their bond strengthened through adversity. This encounter was a turning point. Eli realized they could no longer hide. The dragon's revival was a beacon, a call to action. The galaxy had forgotten heroes like Verextel, but now it was time to remember. They set course for an ancient refuge, a hidden world whispered about in star charts, the last known sanctuary of the dragon's creators. Eli hoped to find allies, knowledge, and a chance to restore what had been lost. For Verextel, it was a return home, a chance to reclaim identity and purpose. As they traveled, the dragon's strength blossomed. Wings that once sagged now flexed with power. Neural networks repaired, memories returned in vivid flashes. Verextel's presence no longer ailing but commanding, a living legend reborn. Eli watched this transformation with quiet awe. He was no longer just a salvager. He was a guardian, a witness to a miracle that transcended time and space. Verextel was proof that endurance, hope, and humanity could conquer even the darkest abandonment. Their journey continued, not just to survive but to inspire. The galaxy would hear the story of the old alien dragon saved by a human, an emblem of resilience that no force, no betrayal, could extinguish. In the vast cosmic silence, a new chapter began. Together, Eli and Verextel were ready to face whatever awaited beyond the stars.